I put my husband's name off our son's birth certificate after he said he needed proof. My son was born on a Tuesday in March. 8 pounds, healthy, looked exactly like his dad, which is honestly almost funny in retrospect. I was still in the hospital bed, maybe 2 hours after delivery, still trying to figure out how to get him to latch, when my husband said he needed to talk to me. I thought he meant something about insurance forms or visiting hours. I said sure, go ahead. He said he'd been thinking about it for a while, and before he signed anything, he wanted to be sure the baby was his. He needed a paternity test first. I remember the monitor beeping next to me. I remember my son's fist curling around my pinky finger. I looked at my husband and asked him to say that again. He said it again. Said it had been in the back of his mind and he just needed to know for sure before he put his name on anything official. I was too stunned and too exhausted, and the baby was right there between us. I just said okay. He said he appreciated it and went to get coffee. The nurse came back about an hour later with the birth certificate paperwork. She was cheerful, walking me through each line, and when she got to the father's name, I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Then I told her to leave it blank. I told myself it was temporary, that once he had his proof we could file an amendment and move on. I think I even believed that at the time. My husband didn't notice for almost 2 days. He was in and out, bringing me food, offering to hold the baby in this careful, tentative way that looked like he hadn't decided yet if he was allowed to. He was attentive and guilty looking all at once, and I didn't say anything to him about the form. My mom flew in the night we came home and stayed in the guest room. She didn't know any of it. On day 3, he asked if I'd handled all the paperwork. I said yes. He found out on a Thursday afternoon when he called our insurance company to add the baby to the plan. The woman on the phone told him he wasn't listed as the father on the birth certificate. He came home quiet, stood in the kitchen doorway and said, "You didn't put my name on it." I said no. He asked why. I said, "You told me you needed proof first, so I figured I'd wait until you had it." He said that wasn't what he meant, that he hadn't expected me to actually do that he was just saying he wanted to be sure before things were official, that this wasn't supposed to go this far. I asked what exactly he thought needing proof meant. He said it was different. I asked how it was different. He didn't answer that. His mom called 2 days later, said I was being vindictive, using an innocent baby to punish my husband. I told her son had asked me to prove his own child was his from a hospital bed 2 hours after I'd given birth. She went quiet for a second, then said she understood he'd handled it badly, but this was going too far. I said I hadn't done anything he hadn't done first. She said that wasn't the same thing. We went in circles until I told her I had to go feed the baby and hung up. He ordered a mail-in paternity test on his own, swabbed the baby, mailed the kit, and we spent the next 2 weeks barely talking about anything except logistics. Who was taking the 3 a.m. feed, whether we needed more diapers, what time the pediatrician appointment was. He slept in the guest room. I don't think either of us suggested it. It just sort of happened. My mom figured out something was wrong around day 5. She sat across from me at the kitchen table one morning while the baby was napping and asked me to tell her what was going on. So I did. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting. Then she sat there for a long moment and said, "Good. You left it blank." The results came back on a Friday evening. He was in the living room. I was on the couch nursing the baby, and he went pale reading his phone. "He's mine," he said, like it was news to him. "I know," I said. He set his phone down and stared at the carpet for a minute. Then he started apologizing. Said he'd been stupid, that his brother had gone through something a few years back and it had gotten into his head and he'd spiraled, and he was so sorry. He was crying a little by the end. Real crying, not performative. I believed he meant it. I did. But I also kept thinking about sitting in that hospital bed while the nurse waited and deciding to say nothing. He asked me to file the paperwork to add him to the birth certificate. Said it mattered to him. Said the baby deserved to have his name on it. I told him I'd think about it. He looked at me for a long time after that. "You'll think about it," he said, like he was checking if he'd heard me right. "Yeah," I said. "I'll think about it. The baby's birth certificate still just has my name on it."